Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hitting Bags and Stealing Balls. This is part 2 of my players to watch in 2025. Okay, obviously, last video we did the AL. Today, we're going to do the NL, which is absolutely loaded. I think I came up with some good names, some guys that you probably already know to watch, but also some guys that were either had a really bad year last year compared to previous seasons or just young kids that, I think are going to take that next step. And I'm not going to talk about the Pete Alonso signing this episode. I'm waiting on Bregman to sign, and then I'm going to go over some of the interesting signings that have happened basically the last month, because after things kind of slowed down, there was just not very many big names left other than Alonso and Bregman, really, and Flaherty, which I'll get to that, in that other episode. But I didn't really want to keep making episodes for guys that really don't move the needle that much, you know what I mean? But, once Bregman signs, I'll do a whole episode on those guys, because I do think the Flahertys, the Alonsos, and the Bregmans, those guys do move needles, okay? Also, what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to tell you that this is hosted by Matthew Fitzwater. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm also not going to tell you that this is being filmed on Friday, February 7th, okay? I'm not going to tell you that either. What I am going to tell you is who you should watch in the NL, okay? So, I'm going to jump right into it. We're going to go straight to the West, which is just, come on, that division is loaded, you guys. Let's not play around here. And I'm going to go straight to the Dodgers, and to be honest with you, I couldn't choose. That's why I'm doing them first. You pretty much need to watch their entire team. Okay, Ohtani should be pitching again. You're obviously going to want to watch Ohtani. Okay, Hae-Sung Kim, they're apparently starting, second baseman from Korea. You're going to want to watch him. Okay, what can he do over here in America? You're going to want to watch Roki Sasaki, who, of course, is a Dodger now. And you're going to want to watch Blake Snell. What can he do after signing that big contract with the Dodgers? You're going to want to watch Tyler Glasnow. Can he stay healthy, and lead them to... I'd be surprised if this team doesn't win 110 games. I'll be honest. Anything's possible. It's baseball. They didn't win 110 games last year. But that's just how I see it, honestly. And so, Hae-Sung Kim, Roki Sasaki, Ohtani pitching, Glasnow, Blake Snell. Just watch the entire Dodgers team, man. They're going to be absolutely elite. Of course, if a lot of them can stay healthy, because that has been a continuous problem for them. Although that's why they keep spending money to add these guys. Okay? They have the best depth in baseball. If they could lose 3 or 4 pitchers to injury, and I bet they still have a top 5 rotation in baseball. Okay? That's just what the Dodgers have built over there. So just keep an eye on their entire team. Next up, we're going to go to the Padres, who I think everybody's a little disappointed in this offseason. Okay? Even Manny Machado came out and said, obviously, it's frustrating not to see them make moves. And, of course, the ownership's going through some legal problems. They're talking about trading Michael King and Dylan Cease. It's a mess over in San Diego. But I went with, I think, somebody that is an obvious choice, Jackson Merrill in center field, okay? So, this guy was an elite rookie. He played all but 6 games. He hit 24 home runs, had 90 RBIs. He stole 16 bases. He doesn't walk a lot, okay? But, his average, sits around the 280 mark. Out of a center fielder who is also excellent at defense, what more could you want? You got a platinum, glover over in right field in Fernando. Then you go to Jackson Merrill in center field. That's a nice 1-2 punch. And I do think that he's going to continue. We have seen some guys have them sophomore slumps, okay, which we're about to get to one next. But I just think that the way that Jackson Merrill plays baseball, and with who he's around on that team, a lot of veterans that can help, teach him, help him make adjustments when needed. I see Jackson Merrill having another great campaign his sophomore season. Next up, we're going to go to Arizona. And there are a couple names here. Obviously, I could have went Corbin Burns. I think he's going to do great things over in Arizona. That rotation is definitely going to be the best it's been in a couple years if they stay healthy. But I went with Corbin Carroll because last year he was 5th in MVP voting. He was the leader on a team that shocked everybody in the NL when they made it to the World Series. Okay, I mean, he was that guy. All right, he had power. He obviously had the speed. He stole 50 bases. He had a high average, high on base percentage, excellent defense. I mean, he really had it all. And then to start this season, he had a better second half, but dude, I mean, his season was just such a big surprise. When you look at the final numbers, the sophomore slump was real for Corbin Carroll, okay? And I don't think that's going to be a continuous thing. Obviously, I'm telling you to keep an eye on him this season because I do think he's going to go back to being one of the best players on that team. But, I mean, his average went from 285 to 235. His on-base percentage went from 366 to like 320. He stole 20 less bases. He hit 2 less home runs. And he had the same amount of RBIs, believe it or not. So just imagine, with that lineup, dude, because they have the highest scoring offense in the league. They have for the last 2 years. The Diamondbacks can score. And so imagine if he still hit 280. I mean, dude, he could have easily had a 100 RBI season. And of course, he doesn't really hit in that spot in the lineup. He's not the 4th hole hitter, the 3rd hole hitter. But, I mean, dude, Corbin Carroll he's an excellent player, and I think he's going to make that adjustment. I really hope so, because to see him in his rookie season finish 5th in MVP voting just to fall off a cliff, I mean, I hate seeing that for guys. So I really hope he has a bounce-back season, and I definitely think everybody needs to keep an eye on him. Next up, for the San Francisco Giants, this one was a little bit hard, too, because there are a lot of young kids there. You got Tyler Fitzgerald, you have Heliot Ramos, but this one, I feel good about this one. Jung-Ho Lee, okay? He signs that 6-year, $100 million deal to come over here, from Korea. He starts in center field for the Giants. He gets hurt, which you never like to see. His numbers were okay, all right? He had, a 260 average. Nothing really jumps out, but, I mean, he was just getting started. And then you had Heliot Ramos take his spot, and then he lit up the world, okay? So it's kind of just, I assume they're probably going to put Ramos in left field, put Jung-Ho Lee back in center field. He should be ready at the start of the season. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out, but I just think that's somebody you need to keep an eye on. Because 6 years, $100 million deal, that's a lot for somebody that's never played in Major League Baseball before, And normally these guys come over here, and they're ready to go. Whether they're from Korea or Japan, most of the time, they're at least good enough to start. They might not be elite, but I definitely think he has some potential. I'd love to see him play a full year. Obviously never want to see anybody get hurt. And I think he's somebody to watch over there. That Giants lineup, with the addition of Adames, obviously Chapman, Ramos, Tyler Fitzgerald, Jung-Ho Lee, I think it can be exciting. The only problem is they play in the hardest division in baseball. So we'll just have to see how he performs, but I definitely expect him to be above average, I'd say is a good way to put it. So just keep an eye on Jung-Ho Lee in San Francisco. Next up with the Colorado Rockies, somebody who fell off a cliff, okay? Nolan Jones. Left fielder and first baseman, but he's a left fielder, okay? And last year was technically 2023 was technically his rookie year, okay? Although he did play in 2022, and he got some Rookie of the Year votes, okay? I mean, in 2023, he was pretty solid for a very bad team. I mean, this dude got overlooked by a lot of people. He played 106 games, had a 4.4 WAR, which is insane. Okay, he had 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases. He hit 297. He had a 380 OBP. Okay, I mean, that's for a team like the Rockies. he looked like he was going to be the next guy, okay? You know, Nolan Jones, Ezekiel Tovar, however you say that, sorry. But, I mean, they clearly are going to have these young kids come up. But it's just, you know, Brent Doyle, whoever you want to name over there in Colorado. There's a couple young kids, but you're like, you see that, you know, a 140 OPS plus, which if you don't know what that means, OPS plus is basically like 100 is MLB average, okay? So every point above that is the percentage he is better than league average. So 140 OPS plus would mean he is 40% above league average, okay, in terms of OPS. And so that's really good, especially when you play for a team that loses 100 games, okay? And so it's hard to believe that somebody would have a year like that and then completely just disappear, you know, and he's still young, he's 25. I'm not saying he's going to reach that level again because, I mean, guys, that's near elite. I mean, that has to be one of the better statistical seasons, you know, in that short span of games played. You know, he missed 60 games basically. So, yeah, I mean, that is 2020 season, 297, a 380 OBP in 106 games. That doesn't happen much. But then you look at his numbers last year, and it's almost like he forgot to play baseball. And again, I don't think that's going to be consistent, which is why you need to keep an eye on him. I think he's going to bounce back. Don't think he's going to have another 140 OPS plus season. I just don't. But another 2020 season, I mean, yeah, why not? There's no reason to think he can't do that. But you look at his season last year, he had negative WAR. He only played 80 games, okay, but he only stole 3 bases. He only had 3 home runs. He hit .237. I mean, that's almost not even the same guy. Like, you'd think if I was reading those stats, you'd be like, there's no way that's the same guy. And injuries happen, and they can really hurt a player's season. But if he comes back fully healthy, I expect him to find some middle ground there, okay? I mean, probably not, you know, another 389 OBP season, but definitely a 2020 if he plays a full season. I find it hard to believe he can't do that. But anyways, that does it for the NL West. There's some really big names over there, okay? So, I mean, that division is absolutely loaded. I'm very excited to watch them this upcoming season. Next up, we're going to go to a little bit more of the lopsided division, okay, and mediocre, unfortunately, compared to the rest of the NL. But we're going to go to the Central. And we're going to start with my hometown team, the Cincinnati Reds. And look, again, there's a lot of young kids on this team that you could keep an eye on, okay? I think the Reds are severely underrated, okay, at least going into this next year, because I say that every year, and then they underperform. You know, they do have injuries a lot, especially with their rotation, okay? But there were a couple guys that I really wanted to choose from. Rhett Lauder is a great one you need to keep an eye on, okay? Young stud pitcher, came up last year, only pitched, I think, 30 innings, but was elite, man, when he pitched, okay? I think he might be the new guy there. Obviously, it'll take a couple years before he can move up into the A spot, you know, with Hunter Green being an absolute flamethrower. But I think Rhett Lauder you need to keep an eye on. However, the main one I went with was Matt McClain. Okay, he missed the entire season last year with injury, which you never like to see. You know, to come back from that, it's tough, man. It's tough. And so I don't know if he's going to turn out as good as he maybe would have without this injury, but he got overshadowed his rookie season. In 2023, when you look, him and Ellie both came up around the same time. Ellie played about 10 more games. But when you look at their stats, Matt McClain was the better player. Okay, he doesn't play a prime position, or at least not compared to Ellie. You know, Ellie's a shortstop, McClain's a second baseman. I think Ellie's ceiling is higher, but the floor I would give to Matt McClain. I really think his floor is higher, okay? I mean, you know, Ellie hit 237, McClain hit 290, Ellie hit 13 home runs, McClain hit 16, and McClain walks more, he strikes out a lot less. You know, that's Ellie's big problem. And so I think if you're looking at who should be the number 2 hitter in that lineup, who should be the guy that gets on in front of Ellie, it's got to be Matt McClain, okay? If he's fully healthy, obviously. And I really hope he doesn't get hurt again, man. But those injuries, it can derail a career fast. And so hopefully he comes back healthy. And I think he gets overlooked a lot, which I understand. Ellie's fun to watch. He's amazing. He obviously steals all the bases. McClain doesn't do that. But just, you got to keep an eye on Matt McClain, dude. And then Rhett Lauder is an honorable mention. The Reds are building something great there. I wish they'd spend a little bit more money to get, that extra power bat. But with what they have right now, I think they're going to be a fun team to watch next year. So keep an eye on Matt McClain. And next up, we're going to go to the Cubs, the Chicago Cubs. And this one's obvious. It's got to be Kyle Tucker, okay? It just has to be. He's going into his walk year. The Cubs went out and traded for this guy to put them over the top. And right now, the Cubs have to be the favorite in the Central, okay? Like I said, I love what the Reds are doing. The Brewers, you can never really count them out. But, dude, the Cubs have, fully kicked it into gear this offseason, okay? And they should. I mean, Chicago is a very big sports city, all right? They don't put up with mediocrity, okay? Unfortunately, the White Sox, okay, are obviously on the south side. But the Cubs can represent Chicago for now, okay? And ever since they won that World Series almost 10 years ago now, they've been pretty mediocre at best, all right? They went through that full rebuild. And they definitely have some other guys like Pete Crow Armstrong, obviously. You want to watch him. Ian Happ's always, a great player to watch. Gold Glove left fielder, big power hitter. But it has to be Kyle Tucker. What is he going to bring to Chicago? He puts up Juan Soto numbers every year when he's healthy, okay, which he does normally get banged up from time to time. But I believe he's going to get paid next offseason. He probably won't stay with the Cubs. It's going to be another Juan Soto thing with the Yankees where they go out, trade for him, and then probably lose him next offseason. But to think that he can't lead them to a division title in that division would be crazy, okay? I mean, I would be mind blown. So you got to keep an eye on Kyle Tucker because he's going to be the centerpiece of that lineup. They got rid of Bellinger. Chicago is Tucker's town now, okay? So keep an eye on Kyle Tucker. He's a great player. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch in Chicago. Next up, the Milwaukee Brewers, also known as everybody's favorite underdog, okay? I mean, this team never has one of the best rosters in baseball, and they always play like one of the best teams in baseball, okay? That's just how they've been, honestly, since I was a kid. But there is a player I do want everybody to keep an eye on, and that's Joey Ortiz. Because you trade away your ace in Corbin Burns last offseason, okay? And you get back your starting third baseman and Joey Ortiz. And everybody's kind of like, okay, but what's he really going to bring to the table? I mean, you better hope he's going to be a star because you got rid of one of the best pitchers in baseball. Everybody's kind of like, are they rebuilding? What are they doing? Nope, they won the division again. And Joey Ortiz started out just as good as you hoped he could be. And then he kind of fell off a cliff. And so it's really, what are you going into the next season expecting? I also believe he's getting ready to get moved to shortstop because obviously Adamez left for the Giants. And so moving from third base to shortstop, it's going to be a little weird, I assume. I don't know if he played shortstop in the minor leagues. I'm not really big on Joey Ortiz. He came up for the Orioles. I'm obviously not an Orioles guy. But the Brewers do really well at getting the best out of people. And so I'm curious how they help him bounce back next season. And obviously I could have went with Jackson Chourio, who he's probably going to be the face of Milwaukee for a while. Christian Yelich, if he's healthy, won that MVP, excellent player. But it's just to see Joey Ortiz, I mean, in the first half of the season, he hit .264, okay, which is solid. I mean, you really can't be mad about that. And then in the second half, he hit .211. Okay, so it's really about what you're going to get from him, especially out the gate. Because I think if any team in that division falls behind the Cubs, by double-digit games, which I don't know, that may be a lot, maybe like 7, by summertime, it might spell trouble. And so I think the Brewers need to come out the gate firing, keep things close, in case somebody on the Cubs gets hurt and then they slowly start going down. And so you really want to see Joey Ortiz keep things steady, okay? Even if he hits 250, I think you can be happy with that, but anything below that, it's a disappointment. And if he can stick to shortstop, if that's where they're going to play him next season, can he field it at an okay level? I mean, that's really what you want out of a shortstop. We've seen a lot of shortstops who can't really hit, but are Gold Glove, Platinum Glovers. And so that's maybe not nowadays. A lot of the shortstops nowadays can hit. But when I grew up, there was a lot of those. Andrelton Simmons is the perfect one. Never an elite hitter, but my gosh, dude. Every time a ball was hit his way, you're out. You're done. I mean, you shouldn't even run out of the batter's box as soon as you see it hit towards shortstop. I don't think he's going to be that good, but we'll see. Just keep an eye on Joey Ortiz. Next up, this one's going to be fast. Pittsburgh Pirates. I just hit my microphone. Oops. Pittsburgh Pirates. Paul Skeens. Watch him. Is he going to win Cy Young? I don't see why not. I love this kid. I mean, I'm never going to... Honestly, if you gave me a choice to pick any pitcher in Major League Baseball, I don't even care that he only pitched half a season or a little over half a season. I'd take Paul Skeens. I think he's going to be the best pitcher in baseball. To watch him pitch, I mean, I watched almost every game he started for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and of course, they never scored any runs for him, but it didn't matter because he only allowed, I mean, dude, he's going to have a low 2 ERA, I think. He's going to strike out 250 guys if he plays a full season. Keep an eye on Paul Skeens. I'm going to leave it at that. You should already know that. The dude is absolutely amazing. All right, now let me take a deep breath. I got that out of my system. You could tell I've been wanting to say that. We're going to go to the St. Louis Cardinals, who again are a little bit of a disappointment. Okay, because nobody really knows where they're at. They didn't trade their closer away, at least not yet. They haven't traded Arenado away yet. Are they rebuilding? Are they trying to compete? I don't know. There were 2 names I really could have went with here. The first one being Mason Wynn, who I think most people know by now, especially if you're in the Central Division or you're a fan of, the Central Division. You need to keep an eye on Mason Wynn. Okay, he's not elite, but he's an above-average shortstop. Okay, and he's probably going to be the face of that team for a while. Where I went was Jordan Walker. Okay, I mean, and 2 years ago, he's the number 4 ranked prospect in baseball. Okay, all of baseball, number 4 ranked. And he came up, and he did pretty solid at first. I mean, he's listed as a right fielder. I'm pretty sure they play him mainly as a DH, which is never a good sign. I mean, to not be able to field in right field, it's a little odd. Okay, I don't know if they plan on moving him somewhere. But he hit well. I mean, he hit 280. He had 16 home runs in 117 games. He had a 340 OBP. Okay, he does strike out a lot. But, I mean, those numbers aren't bad. Okay, 280, almost 20 home runs in 117 games. I'd be happy with that. Okay? But you go to this year, he only played 51 games. Okay? He hit 5 home runs. He hit 201. His OBP was 250. That's unacceptable. That's going to get you kicked out of the big leagues like that. Okay? A 250 OBP, I mean, that's... And again, he was obviously battling injuries. He only played 50 games. But to go from the number 4 ranked prospect in baseball to a DH that hits 201, things are not looking good over in St. Louis. So hopefully he figures it out. Hopefully he has a fully healthy season, and I think we can expect some good things out of him. But yeah, that's DH 201. It's just not going to do it, man. It's not. So let's see I'd say keep an eye on Jordan Walker to see if he can bounce back next season. So finally, we're going to end with the NL East. And again, this division is pretty loaded, man. I mean, I'd be very surprised if 3 teams didn't make it to the playoffs from this division, okay? And we're going to start with the Philadelphia Phillies, who I think honestly end every year as a disappointment. I mean, their roster going into every season is pretty loaded, okay? When you look at it, the depth chart, whatever, when everybody's healthy, that team should be one of the best in baseball. And while they perform during the regular season, they get to the playoffs, and it's just like they forget how to play baseball, man. I mean, but that's why this sport is so great, because it doesn't just matter what's on paper, you know what I mean? Which people that hate the Dodgers love to hear that. But look, I went with 2 choices. Okay, the first one I went with Jesus Luzardo, who the Phillies just traded for, to add to an already stellar rotation. Okay, which, I mean, if you could argue it's the best in baseball, I don't think it quite is. It's definitely top 5, though, I would say, if everybody's healthy. But Luzardo, he's not elite, but as a 5th man in a rotation, that's got to be one of the best 5th men in all of baseball, okay? Rotations are not that deep normally. And so I'm curious what he does at the back end of that rotation. They might move him to the bullpen. I don't think they will, but we'll just have to wait and see, which again is why he should be one of the players you keep an eye on. Next up is Bryson Stott, okay, who middle of the road defensively at second base, but I'm not really sure what he is, because when you look at his statistics, they fluctuate. His rookie season, 2022, he was a little below average hitting-wise, okay? And then in 2023, he took a step up, okay, and was above average. And then this past season, he fell down again. And it's just, second base is an elite position. You don't need the best hitter on your team to play second base, okay? Gleyber Torres was a perfect example. He could hit, but my gosh, dude. His fielding it wasn't worth it. You know what I mean? Like, you at least want to have somebody that can field, which Stott can do. He's at least middle of the road in that. But it's like, you don't know what he's bringing to that lineup, okay? So when you look at his stats, he went from 234 to 280 to 245. Now, his stolen bases have went up. He only had 12 the first season, but he's had 30 the last 2 seasons, which is good. He can steal bases. But that's such, to go from 230 all the way to 280, you're like, okay, he's making progress. And then you go right back down to 245. It's, you kind of want to see a little bit of consistency there. Somewhere in the middle, find 260. Okay? We just talking about somebody, that hits 260. Joey Ortiz. That's all you need. 260. Anybody that hits 260 or above, I think, is good enough to start every single game of the season. That's just how I feel, especially with how baseball is now. Okay, but when you start getting down to the low 240s, you're starting to worry me a little bit. But we'll have to see. Keep an eye on Luzardo, keep an eye on Stott, see if those guys take that next step on a team that competes every year, okay? And if you was to ask me who I have more faith in, honestly, it's probably Luzardo, okay? Because he isn't elite, like I said, but he's on a rotation, or he's in a rotation that's full of elite pitchers that can teach him some stuff. So, I don't know. I lean more Luzardo, but I think Stott is definitely somebody to also keep an eye on. Next up, the Atlanta Braves, who I think everybody's sleeping on because of the disappointing season last year. If everybody comes back healthy, they're the Atlanta Braves again. You get Ronald Acuna back, Spencer Strider back. And look, I could have won Acuna. Everybody knows to watch him. The dude is basically the best player in baseball when he's healthy, okay? But I basically went with their entire rotation. Is Chris Sale going to keep pitching like a Cy Young winner, okay? He obviously just won the Cy Young, but he's getting older. Can he keep that going? We've seen him get injured. We've seen him kind of fluctuate. Ronaldo Lopez is also somebody to keep an eye on. Okay, I mean, he was, with the White Sox, he was a bullpen pitcher, okay? Now, he used to be a really, really highly rated prospect. It's a name that I recognize, years ago from when I would go through the prospect list. I remember seeing it. He came up, got hammered, they sent him to the bullpen. He got a little bit better, and then Atlanta was like, we'll go ahead and take him, And then him and Chris Sale were basically the two best pitchers in the National League. Okay, so keep an eye on Ronaldo Lopez. Is he going to continue to do what he did? He had a 1.99 ERA, you guys, okay? As a starter, that is insane. All right, he didn't pitch 200 innings, you know what I mean? So, but Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez, and then, of course, Spencer Strider. Okay, coming off of that injury, he was the best pitcher in baseball. The Braves have a pitching farm over there. He's so fun to watch. I mean, the way he throws the ball, okay? It's just insane to me that Max Fried left and Atlanta still might have a top 5 rotation in baseball, okay? If all them guys stay healthy and if they all continue what they were doing, I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. So, honestly, just keep an eye on the entire Braves rotation, all right? It's going to be electric. I really think it is. Now, next up, we're going to go to the New York Mets. Ooh, the New York Mets, man. I want to skip them, I'll be honest, but I won't. I won't do it. There's 2 names you need to keep an eye on with the Mets. First off, Clay Holmes, who was a closer for the Yankees. He had 2 really solid years. He's coming off the worst year of his career, as a closer. He blew a lot of saves. He just didn't. To be fair, the Yankees' defense was awful, and he's a ground ball pitcher. So, not all on him, but also I really didn't expect him to get paid. I knew the Yankees were just going to let him go. They needed to, man. I mean, he just didn't really. We would have won 100 games had he not been our closer for most of the season. But then the New York Mets, of all teams, go, we'll take Clay Holmes, and we're going to make him a starter. Okay? And when I heard that, I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets pull it off, okay? They have done that with pitching the last couple of years, where they just get these guys that nobody wants, and they pitch great. I mean, they got a below-average Manaea. They got an always-hurt Severino. They went out and got Jose Quintana. And then all them guys performed great last year for them, okay? And so they're going to try to do it again this year. But I do think if their defense improves, which, could go either way, honestly, when I'm looking at it, then Clay Holmes could have success. And I don't think he's going to give up. He's not going to have a 6 ERA, okay? I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I think he's going to. But do I think he's going to succeed as above maybe a 4th or 5th starter? I don't. Now, that's kind of where they sign him at, to be that 4th or 5th starter. So all he has to do is sit around a 4 ERA, and I think they're happy with that, and I could see that out of him. So I definitely think it's more so just to see how long he can last in games, how many innings he can pitch, whether or not he tries to strike guys out more, or how he goes about it. And also, that Mets rotation as a whole, I think, is a big question mark. Obviously, the lineup is great, dude. One of the best lineups in the National League, at least I think so. But when you look at the rotation, yeah, there's some big question marks there. And I think it starts with Clay Holmes. All right, so now we go to Washington, all right, who I think is an underdog going into the season. I don't think they're going to compete just yet, but they're getting close, man. I mean, that, like I've said in the past, that outfield, I think, has the potential 2 years from now to be the best in baseball, okay? They've got a lot of young kids. They have C.J. Abrams, who is a below-average defender at shortstop, okay? So I could have went with him. Are they going to move him to second base? What's that look like? But I went with the obvious Dylan Cruz, okay? I mean, this guy was just ranked the top prospect in Major League Baseball, okay? And correct me if I'm wrong, but Washington seems to have a thing for right fielders, okay? Who can get on base at an elite level, who can put contact on the ball, and who can steal some bases. All right? I mean, you go from Bryce Harper to Juan Soto, now to Dylan Cruz. Guys, I mean, if I was betting my house on one thing, I'd probably put it on the fact that Dylan Cruz is going to succeed at the major league level. Okay? And I hope he does. I think it's going to be fun to watch. You know, I want to see Washington, after they won that World Series, obviously they ditched everybody. You know, they went into basically a full rebuild, which I think teams should do more of, because that World Series window is so small, dude. And when you win one, if you try to go back the next year, unless you're the Dodgers, then the odds of you winning again are pretty slim. So they cleaned house, and now they've got all these young kids coming up, and we could see them right back in the mix, 2 years from now. So I think there's a lot of players on that team to watch, but I definitely think that you need to keep an eye on Dylan Cruz. I mean, I think that kid's going to be the real deal. Like I said, he gets on base at an elite level. He can steal. He puts the bat to the ball. He should be a pretty solid defender, okay? I mean, I don't think he's going to be elite, but keep an eye on Dylan Cruz. Also, before I get to the final team, who is obviously the worst team in the East, sorry, Miami fans, but I should have mentioned this. If you're wondering why the frame suddenly changed and you're missing stuff in front of the microphone here, the recording got messed up and I lost the last couple minutes of the footage, so I had to come back and redo it, and I'd moved stuff out of the way since then. So if you're going to wonder why it's going to be an immediate change, I should have mentioned it as soon as it happened, but that's why. But anyways, let's go to Miami, all right? And there's a lot of young kids on Miami that I could have chosen, but there was one in particular who's not necessarily a kid. He's pitched a couple years, but he's still younger. I was really interested in, and it's Ryan Weathers. Okay, and the reason he got my attention was because he was never a full-time starter before this past season. Okay, he had come from the Padres. The Marlins had traded for him a couple years ago, and they didn't really give anything up for him. But he had never really had success. I mean, every year, coming out of the bullpen, or at least starting some games, he had above a 5 ERA every single season, okay, which I think there was 3 seasons. And now, all of a sudden, he pitched 90 innings, okay, full-time starter this past season, and had a 3.6 ERA. So that's a big jump. Still, obviously, only 90 innings. That's about half out of what you want out of a starting pitcher. But to go from above a 5 every single year to all of a sudden you're down to a 3.6. So I don't know who the pitching coach in Miami is, or if he just figured something out, to get weaker contact. But I'm interested now. Now I have to keep my eyes on Ryan Weathers, and I think you should too, because that's interesting to me. When you see guys, and he's about at that age where guys, take a step up. The prime years in baseball, typically, unless you're somebody like Vlad or Juan Soto, typically around 26 to 30 is like elite. And he's, I believe, 27. So he's getting to that, middle ground. But, yeah, it was just very weird to me that he all of a sudden just jumped up. So hopefully he pitches a full season, stays healthy. Hopefully they continue to use him as a starter. And maybe we'll see the best out of Ryan Weathers, man. Maybe, obviously, when you're playing in Miami, he's not going to be an ace. He could be. They just had a Cy Young winner a couple years ago. But we'll see. We'll see. I definitely am going to keep an eye on him, and I think you should too. So that pretty much sums up the players I think you should watch from each major league team in the NL. So thank you for watching. I'm getting ready to do another episode on just basically the spring training news. We've already got a couple injuries pop up, which isn't surprising. We've got the Bregman signing to talk about. Pete Alonso going back to the Mets. I want to talk about that. So yeah, guys, we're getting so close, and I'm so excited. But definitely thank you for listening. Comment, let me know what you think. If there's any guys that you want to keep an eye on. And make sure to follow me, subscribe, like, share, just, get my name out there, you guys. I love talking ball. So to stay tuned, and thank you again.